Sometimes we just need to spend time by ourselves. There are times in our lives where we need to be alone. We need solo time. We don't feel like being around others. We don't feel like being in the company of others. Maybe the company of others is almost not good for us because we're cocooning. Maybe you're cocooning right now, and hey, cocooning's not a bad thing. It ends up with you sprouting your wings. Wings probably don't sprout, but growing your wings. And it can be seen as a time of reflection, a time of getting to know yourself, of coming home to yourself. But sometimes we're in a period of being by ourselves because we have to be. Sometimes we feel like, or just sometimes it's not even we feel like, there are some times when we just simply are isolated from the world. Maybe you moved somewhere, maybe you're studying a lot, maybe you have just big changes going on in your life and you don't have time for people around you, or maybe you move somewhere and you haven't met friends yet and you just feel isolated and alone. Well, I have to say, I am the queen of alone time. I truly am. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad time, or a good thing or a bad thing, but I am good at being by myself. I'm good at enjoying my own company. I like who I am. You know, that viral sound that went around. I like who I am. I love who I am. I like the way I learn. You know what I'm talking about? That one. I am at that stage in my life, and it did not come on purpose. It simply came because for a while I was forced to be alone. There were times, so when we first moved to New York, I didn't know anyone. I was all by myself. I didn't have any friends. Noah was working, and I had to figure out how to do everything in the city by myself. And this is coming from someone who went from not being able to drive, that didn't leave my house on my own. When we lived in California, I developed this like severe anxiety where like I wouldn't leave the house by myself. I wouldn't drive myself anywhere. I drove when I was younger, but like I had only driven in my small town. So I kind of felt like I had forgotten how to drive, and I just became more of a hermit there, more of like, I didn't allow myself to leave. And this wasn't like a healthy social isolation. This was more of like I'm depressed. Because this is during the time when I'd cut my mom off for 2 years. So this is more of like an I'm depressed social isolation. So, you know, not the good kind. I took resting a little too seriously back then. But then we moved to New York City, and it became, I had no choice but to learn how to do things on my own. I actually think moving to New York City kind of saved my life, because I had to get up and do things. Like if I wanted to get somewhere, I had to take the train. If I wanted to do anything. But luckily I will backtrack, towards the end of our time in California, that's around the time when I started to get sick and tired of myself and be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be this person that can't do anything on their own. And a couple months before we moved, we ended up getting a second car. The car that Noah and I had for the longest time, we just shared a car. It was very old. It was paid off. And we were like, you know what, let's lease a second car so that when Noah was at work, I can learn to drive again. Obviously, like he taught me. I had my license and stuff, and I had driven when I was younger, just in my hometown, just not in Los Angeles, California, which is very hard to drive in. And on the weekends, Noah was like teaching me how to drive and stuff. And I had just started like finally feeling like, you know what, I am tired of this. And I started taking myself on little trips to like Dunkin' Donuts and Target just to get myself out of the house. And I simply started craving that independence again, but I didn't crave other people's company yet. I still felt like I needed time to kind of come back to myself. And then when we had no choice but to move to New York City, which was like the best thing. We had a choice, but basically Noah's other company laid pretty much everyone off, and they had a few opportunities for some people to not be laid off if they moved to the New York City location. And so that's why we moved. I never really talk too much about it, but that's why we moved. I remember when I was like, yeah, we're moving to New York, some people were so angry. They were like, oh my gosh, but you just got your dream apartment in LA. I'm like, yeah, but at the time I didn't want to share. Now that like we're past it, Noah's like, yeah, we can talk about it. Back then, no, we were like, didn't want to share online. Well, yeah, Noah was about to get laid off. We didn't have a choice. We wouldn't have been able to afford it. And so I was like, we didn't have a choice. But New York was something we had wanted to do for a long time. We just hadn't planned on doing it at that moment. It's funny because years before LA, we had tried moving to New York, and we failed. We tried a few times. First, we applied for jobs, didn't get them. Then we applied for, we thought we were going to just come here and then get a job after. Like, it was when I was doing social media full time, but not enough to like afford New York. We were like, you know what, I'd come here and get a part-time job and do this, and then Noah would like get a job here. And then we applied for apartments, didn't get approved for those, and that's when we were like, you know what, let's take New York off the table. Anyways, fast forward a few years later, we have an opportunity to go. My social media is to a point where I can afford New York. Noah's job is to the point we can afford it. I can't afford it. Now, we're definitely not like raking in the dough, but like enough to get to New York. But the point of that is, by the time we got here, it was like I had gotten to the point where I wanted to do things on my own. I was tired of my own excuses in my head of like, let's just stay home all day. And that's the key to like spending time by yourself, is you have to make it enjoyable. If you are spending time by yourself all day, but you hate the time you spend with yourself, that's a problem. If you hate spending time alone and you're not making any effort, that's a problem. That's what I was doing. I was waiting until I felt like I needed friends again or wanted friends again, this, that, and the other, to make plans and to do fun things. And I thought that, oh, let's just spend years of my life by myself inside while Noah's at work all day, and I'll just watch TV all day long. That was all I was doing. And I love a good TV show binge, you know? I love my reality TV, but there's only so long you can do that. And so I made it a mission to start doing these things I called Solo in the City, kind of like Sex and the City, but Solo in the City. I was going to make it a series on Instagram. I ended up making 2 posts about it, and I never did it again. Maybe I should bring them back, though. They were really fun to do. But I started doing Solo in the City by myself, truthfully, because I was bored as heck, and I was like, I'm in New York. Noah works 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I got to get out and do stuff. And also, when we moved here, it was like November, so everything was getting dark early. So by the time we got home, things were getting dark, and I'm like, I gotta get outside. I want to see the city. So slowly over time, first I taught myself how to take the subway by myself, which is very scary, taking it the first time. Teaching myself just how to take it one stop, and then eventually I was taking it multiple stops, and then I was taking a transfer, and then I was walking places by myself, and then I was taking myself to get coffee, and then I was taking myself to the movies and to get lunch. And before I know it, I took myself to paint pottery one day. I got into film by myself. I was going to the park and laying out. I was living my life. I was living my life without someone else being there with me. You don't have to have other people in your life to live it properly. You can live your life fully by yourself. Hold on, my nose is itching. Okay. And I think that's something we have to realize, is that we cherish our time with other people so much that we will put forth all this effort when we're hanging out with people, but we don't put forth the effort just towards ourselves. It's kind of like how, you know, we're now all starting to realize, why are we waiting towards special occasions to wear the outfit? Just wear the outfits. Life is too short to not wear it whenever you want. Life is too short to wait for other people to go with you. Go alone. Go on your own. It might even be more fun. I think the more I spent time with myself, like purposeful time with myself, not like just sitting at home being really sad and sorry for myself, when I was like making myself go out and do things, I learned how to listen to my own intuition. I started to learn what I like and what I don't like, because when no one else has an input, you have to figure out, what do I want to do on my own? What restaurant will I pick on my own? What book would I read if I'm not going to like a book club? What movie would I go and see? What food would I get at the movie theater if I'm by myself? What food will I order off the menu with no one around? And you will start to learn who you are that way. I think spending time alone helped me become more of myself than anything else in my entire life has. And now I'm so confident, I'm so comfortable, and my friendships have been better because of it. Because now when I walk into a room, I used to walk into a room and kind of socially isolate, because I felt like I didn't belong there. And I also felt like for the longest time, I was the type of person that would walk into a room and feel the energy and then adapt to the energy in the room. And if I felt like people were like standoffish to me, I'd be standoffish, or I would be more people pleasing. If I felt like someone didn't like me, I would go above and beyond to make them like me, and like contort myself to fit into spaces that maybe I didn't need to fit, instead of just standing my ground, staying who I am, and fitting where I belong, going to tables where I'm wanted, or knowing that I also belong in any space that I want to be. I was thinking, how silly is it? that I am currently in my studio. And sometimes I will be at the studio and think, am I really deserving of this? I'm here. What do you mean? Why would I not deserve this? Why would I not belong here? I am here. How silly of us to question if we belong in spaces that we literally are. You would not have gotten to the space that you are at if you did not belong there. Just like anyone else, And that's the thing, is when we spend so much time with other people and maybe we don't know who we are yet, we can kind of become the sum of those people. And sometimes it's good to take a step back and figure out who you are on your own. And then reintroduce yourself to those groups and figure out, do I want to fit here? Do I like the way I fit here? Like, if you have a lot of friends and a lot of people in your life and you constantly feel like you don't know yourself, you don't like yourself, you're not comfortable with yourself, you don't feel comfortable in these situations, maybe you do need some time. I'm not saying cut everyone off of your life. Maybe you need some time to take a step back and figure out, who am I on my own? Do I like who I am enough on my own to feel comfortable and confident showing up as that version of me in front of everyone else? Because the problem is, if you don't like who you are in private, it's even harder to stand your ground and stand in who you are in front of other people. You see? And I think the key to being comfortable and confident in social situations with other people is first being confident with who you are on your own. I think you have to sometimes have that cocoon time in order to have the butterfly moment. You have to get to know who you are on your own if you're not comfortable with who you are in groups of other people. I used to think the key to becoming very socially confident and comfortable with new friends and in friends groups was just to keep going and to fake it till I make it. And that might work for some people. It did not work for me. I was going into these situations and just realizing I didn't know who I was. I didn't like who I was in these situations. I was just trying to fit into who they wanted me to be. And it's just a clusterfuck when you do that. I remember back in the day when we lived in Ohio, I didn't have bad friends in. Like, I still love all of those people, a lot of those people that I was friends with. There's a few people that I'm not friends with anymore, but most of them I deeply have so much love and stuff for. A lot of them we're still friends with. We may not talk every day, but but the thing is, none of them, the people I'm talking about, were doing anything negative towards me, but I actually had a friend back then who said this to me, and I was so offended, and looking back, it's because she was telling the truth. I remember my friend saying that I was kind of like a chameleon, where every time I would hang out with new people, I would kind of become someone different. And I think it's because I had been in Georgia for a long time. All of my friends had come, I didn't really have a lot of friends. I did the whole Avalon thing where I had the free year, and I kind of made a lot of friends through my photography program, and that was kind of it. All my friends had just been school friends, and I was just doing my social media and really focusing on myself. And so when I moved to Ohio, all of a sudden I had all these friends pop up. There's all these influencer friends, because when I was in Georgia, being an influencer, it was not really a thing yet. That's why I had gotten the Avalon. That's why they did the whole Avalon Perfect Year back then. Obviously they wanted to give back, but I think they also wanted, social media was very new and they wanted to promote their self on social media. And have someone do it for them. But when I got to Ohio, it's that was when Instagram was really first starting to be a thing, when everyone was doing the cute Instagram, Pinteresty type photos. And to do that, a lot of people would make Instagram friends. We'd go and take content, and people would find each other from Instagram. It was a very new world that I was not used to. And I was not used to being confident in who I was on social media, because I was still so much of who I was in my hometown. I was so used to hometown Lindsay, me growing up, when I was bullied and no one liked me and everyone called me trash growing up. I had friends that would see where I lived and their parents would be like, oh, you can't come back over to her house. And now all of a sudden my life was completely different, and I had this social media job, and at the time having 10,000 followers on Instagram was a big deal, and people would be like, that's so cool, and people would wanted to be around me and stuff. But I didn't know who I was, and I didn't necessarily like who I was yet, because I was still kind of struggling with what I had been through in my hometown. I hadn't really let myself get through that and feel it, and kind of mourn that part of me. And instead I had just jumped in this new life of mine. And I remember I had met a lot of good friends, but it wasn't all working out, where it seemed like each friend, if I hung out with this friend and then this friend, they'd meet and they'd be kind of confused about me. Does that make sense? Because I was kind of morphing into someone new with each friend that I hung out with, because I just wanted them to like me so badly. And it wasn't that I was doing it because I was like being fake, but it probably did come off as me being fake. But for me, it just simply was, I wanted people to like me and to be accepted, because I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to being able to be accepted for just being who I was. And the friend that had made the chameleon comment was probably the first friend that I'd been like really myself. And she'd even said like some of her friends would meet me and be like, she seems a little like snobby or something like that. And she'd be like, no, she's not. You just haven't really gotten to know her yet. I think she's nervous around you. But I would put up this front because I didn't know if people were going to accept me. So with new groups, sometimes I would be a little snobby, or maybe I'd be a little standoffish. And with some people, I'd be people pleasing. Some people, I'd be this or that, because I didn't know who I was. And so I was just being whoever I thought I needed to be in different social groups. And it drove me insane. It made my friendships miserable. It made them uncomfortable. It was just a clusterfuck. And in the end, I realized, that the only thing I could do was pause and figure out who I was on my own. Actually, the thing is, I didn't figure that out. What happened is when we moved from Ohio to California, that was when I had that social isolation, because I don't know, I guess I got to California and I was like, this was like the big leagues, of content creators, which is so silly. Like, I'm not someone who thinks like that, but I was so nervous to be around all these other like content creators. And I just decided to stay home all the time. I just filmed all the time at my apartment when Noah was at work, and then I watched TV, and that was all I did. I never left my home. And then eventually I got to this point where I was scared to leave my home. I'd forgotten to drive. Fast forward, and that's how it is. And I think I didn't necessarily need the social isolation in the way where I just sat and was like feeling bad for myself and thinking no one would like me, but it did kind of have me hit a rock bottom where I was like, okay, I'm bored. I'm not ready to make friends yet. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm kind of like really self-conscious to make friends. I was scared to make friends now. I got to do things on my own. And because of that, it did force me to figure out who I was, so that I'm not changing myself for other people. I'm not figuring out who I need to be in a social situation. I'm not coming to a situation and figuring out who do I need to be today. No, it's like, this is who I am. I just show up as I am. And if I get along with someone, that's amazing. If I don't, that's okay too. And it is so much easier that way. It's freeing for your brain not always having to figure out who do I need to be accepted. And I think that's what it comes down to, is if you want to learn to get to know who you are and to like yourself on your own, you've got to learn how to accept who you are on your own. If you want to have great friendships and you want to be confident in social situations, you also have to learn how to love who you are on your own. Both of them come back to that. And I think it's an amazing thing to do, and it's very easy to do. Okay, maybe that's a lie. Maybe it was hard to do. But you could literally just think, do you have any hobbies? And if you don't have hobbies, it's a good time to get some hobbies. You could start with going to the park and reading a book, seeing what book you want to read. You can go to a coffee shop by yourself a few times a week. Just do something and just figure out who you are. Figure out how you want, and don't just like hide yourself when you go out in the world. Don't put your baggy sweatpants on and just go out in the world like hoping no one sees you. Allow yourself to be seen by yourself as you are. Act as if you were going to go hang out with friends, but you're going with yourself, and get dressed the way you would get dressed if you were going out with friends, but the way you want to get dressed. Ask yourself, how do I want to look today? How do I want to feel today? Maybe you want to feel confident and you want to feel really powerful. So get dressed up for that. Maybe you're not going on a night out with friends, but you want to dress like you are. Maybe you're not going to some business meeting, but you can dress like you are. You can dress the way you want to feel. Go to the places that you wish you had people to go with you, and go by yourself and see how you feel. Getting to know yourself is such a beautiful thing, because then you can come back stronger than ever. One, so that you don't have to wait till you have friends to feel confident and to feel like your life is fulfilling. And also, so when you do have friends, it doesn't feel like, one, that you need them to complete you, and two, you don't feel like you're always trying to figure out, how can I be confident socially? Because you know who you are, and you are confident in who you are, and you are bringing the energy into the room. You're not waiting for it. So I hope that was helpful. I would love any thoughts on what you have on this topic. If you want to reach out to me on Instagram, I technically have 2 Instagrams now, at Lindsay.Adkinson and at It Gets Better Pod. Or if you're watching on YouTube, the video version, hello, welcome back to the studio. You can also let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on this? And I'd also really love to know, what are your favorite activities to do by yourself? Because I haven't been doing as many solo dates as I used to. And I'm like, you know what? This has kind of inspired me to get back to it. So let me know, what are your favorite things to do by yourself? And maybe we can all swap some ideas. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you all in the next episode. Bye.